Inevitably, I have to ask you about if you know anything of the current status of any Thunderbirds remake, which is something which is constantly in the air at some point.
Make yourself comfortable, this is going to be a long answer. ITC own Thunderbirds. I can't tell you how they come to own it, except that the property changed hands over and over again, right the way around the world, and it was finally bought by Carlton Television, and they bought the library, the ITC library, which Carlton owned, and Carlton then bought the library, they paid £1 million for it. So I thought, well, now these are people I could talk to, and indeed they were people I could talk to, but just as soon as I was going to broach the subject, there was a so-called merger of ITC and Carlton. I mean, in actual fact, it was a takeover. And so the ownership of Thunderbirds then went to ITC, where it has stayed there for years now. I'm always careful about mentioning people who could sue me. I'm now going to talk about somebody who I hope will sue me. Michael Grade was a man who took over to be the head of ITC. I wrote to him a number of times and always got a two-line answer like, "Dear Gerry, I'm working on it." Bang, that was the end of the letter. I once wrote him a letter which basically said that I worked for your uncle, Lou Grade, for 16 years and I never stopped shooting. It was the longest tape anybody in the world has ever made. The cameras turned almost non-stop for 16 years. I knew Michael Grade's father, who was a very sweet, absolutely lovely man, and he wanted me to make features for him. But Lou Grade called him into his office and said to him, "Keep your hands off Gerry, here's mine." So I never got that chance. But what I find is the greatest mystery is that, as you all know, ITV let the rights go to a British company whose philosophy was, well, what you do is you get an A-class director, you know, that's the term for an international successful director, and you get a special effects unit and all the rest of the boards who, you know, do the bits and pieces and you start shooting. Well, of course, equally, I think you all know that the film was a complete and utter balls up. It gave me a great deal of pain because some of my friends were working on the picture and they came and told me that when the picture was nearly finished, the production company started to invite parents with their children to come and look around the set because it's soon going to be shown. They also told me that people would come in and say, "Where's Gerry today then?" And he would say, he's not here today, but he's right behind the picture. lying bastard. So anyway, eventually it came to the point where they had to commence the publicity, and I'm sure most of you know to know this, but of course there might be one or two who don't know the story. But I was approached by MGM in Hollywood, who offered to pay me $250,000, that's £500,000, to go to the first showing, the premiere, and to say lovely things about it and all the rest of it. Now, unfortunately, I'm not a very wealthy man. I'm all right, but I'm not very wealthy. And anybody dangles $500,000 in front of anybody is bound to be tempted. But I just knew that if I did that, their publicity people would stick me in front of that atrocious car that they made, allegedly for Lady Penelope's new car. And I think they would say that, Gerry is going to be photographed in front of the car, and we're so delighted to have him back in the picture. But I couldn't bring it myself to accept the money, so I didn't. Very difficult to say. Okay, well, listen, I'd like to do a deal with you. I was only joking about you making that, putting £10 million in the bucket, but how about $500,000?
Perhaps as a final question before we wrap up, one of your skills which is less well known is as a writer, as a script editor. Certainly on New Captain Scarlet, you were not credited as such, but you were a script editor. And so I'd be interested to know what you look for in a script.
Well, my position on every series depended on the people we had with us. On the New Captain Scarlet, we had a very top writer in my view. You know who I'm talking
Phil
about?
Ford. Yes, Mr. Ford. Yes, Phil Ford.
Phil Ford.
Yeah.
Phil Ford wrote most of the scripts. I was the producer, and so I would have a brief chat. I mean, Phil would come up and say, well, you know, here's a new idea, and I might make 2 comments because I had the utmost faith in him. But he wrote most of the episodes, and he didn't need nursemaiding because he was and still is a top writer. So there was no desire for my script editing knowledge. What I would say is that because I produce, and because I direct, and because as I've already explained to you, I write scripts, it's very hard for me to keep my nose out of what's going on, but I do play an active part in all the parts of the show, so that it emerges as a true Gerry Anderson show. And that's it, isn't it?
That's it. Well, it was going to be it, but we have a surprise extra guest.
Sorry?
We have a surprise extra guest to come meet you.